Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Weekly CTI for another episode of some really interesting stuff. This weekly threat that I've got for us, Royal Ransomware, is going to be an interesting topic for us to dive down into. But why do we do Weekly CTI? You might be asking yourself. Great question. Glad you asked. And it's because we want to learn about things so that we can learn from things and become better cybersecurity professionals, increase our skills, our knowledge, so on and so forth, right? That's what it's all about. Before we do that, though, I will implore you, please discover below there are things such as the subscribe and like buttons. If you would use your mace or sword or axe and smash it into oblivion, that would be an amazing thing. I'd appreciate that. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers, so here's my plea to you. Help me out. Help me do that. And then, of course, share this with your friends or leave a comment. As always, that'd be fun as well. All right, enough of that action. Let's get into this thing. Royal Ransomware. Organizations have been warned by the FBI and CISA. They say, hey, risks associated with Royal Ransomware are not to be taken lightly. What are we talking here? Well, this is brought to us by Security Weekly, one of my favorite haunts to find out about new and exciting cybersecurity threats. For me to, stay up at night sweating and going, why is everybody stealing our stuff and ransomware and, all sorts of crazy things that are happening. It's just the pure nightmare fuel that keeps CISOs up at night. All right, so there's our intrepid reporter. I won't try to butcher his name. I'll just leave it there so you can see that, give him some credit. But the headline says, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, have issued an alert. Warning, Will Robinson. Warning these organizations of the increasing threat posed by Royal Ransomware, or the Royal Ransomware. This is a great article. I would recommend it if you just want to learn a little bit more about what's going on there. Find the link to Security Week, and it's been cool, man. Have a good time. You can hit the highlights. What we want to do here at Cyber CTI is hit the deep dive. We want to know more about this threat specifically. Give me those details so that I can increase my knowledge, I can increase my skills, and I can better protect my networks. Or help my friends better protect theirs. So that's what we're going to do. That said, jumping out of that, we're going straight to the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency's websites where they have this hashtag Stop Ransomware. Royal Ransomware, specifically. This is actually really cool. There is the alert code if you need it. This is the release dates. All sorts of really good stuff. And underneath this summary, they have this note. It talks about what this hashtag Stop Ransomware business is. It says this joint cybersecurity advisory is a part of an ongoing hashtag Stop Ransomware effort to publish advisories for network defenders that detail various ransomware variants and ransomware threat actors. Ooh, nice. I do enjoy seeing my tax. I assume this is tax dollars. Yeah, it's .gov, CISA.gov. My tax dollars working, doing something productive. This is productive. Good job. Moving on. The hashtag Stop Ransomware advisories include recently and historically observed tactics, techniques, and procedures, also known as TTPs, and indicators of compromise, or IOCs, to help organizations protect against ransomware. That's the whole purpose of this. That is what they are attempting to do. So good for them. This is a good thing. There is a website, stopransomware.gov, and that way you can see all the hashtag Stop Ransomware advisories and learn more about other ransomware threats and no-cost resources. Ooh, it's just keep on coming. It gets better. Just keep reading, right? Okay, so it does have a couple of things you can do to mitigate cyber threats from ransomware as of today, so you might want to check those out. I have a set of notes over here that's going to help us really hit the main talking points that is important to what it is we're trying to do today. So, where do we begin when it comes to Royal Ransomware? Let's talk about what is Royal Ransomware. So, Royal Ransomware is, obviously it's ransomware. It crypto locks your sensitive files and information, and if you want to get them unlocked, you will need to pay a ransom, and in this instance, it will be a Bitcoin ransom. Because who doesn't love a good Bitcoin ransom? And it will be between the amounts of $1 and $11 million. At least that's what the FBI, I believe, has seen with their research. So really interesting. Other interesting thing is the ransom note itself usually just kind of pop-ups. That's what typically occurs. And says, hey, go here and pay ransom. This is a .onion site that it redirects you to. It says, hey, go to this .onion site where more information will be given to you at that point in time. So really, really interesting stuff. Let's see here. The thing that we also need to kind of take a look at is who this is targeting, right? And it says right here, royal actors have targeted numerous critical infrastructure sectors, including, but not limited to, things like manufacturing, communications, healthcare, public healthcare, and education. That's not good. They shouldn't be doing that. Listen here, royal ransomware scumbags, stop doing this stuff. It's not cool and nobody likes it. So put the kibosh on it. If we find you, well, you get yourself a nice little set of lovely bracelets and probably a roommate who will find you very, very interesting in a way you probably won't enjoy. So there is that. Hopefully that is a good motivation for you royal ransomware threat actors to stop doing what you do. I know you're probably like, yeah, we're in some foreign country. You're not going to do anything to us. It has happened, though. It does happen from time to time. You might be next. Okay, so that's what royal ransomware is. It's ransomware. It targets these specific industries and so on and so forth. Anything else? Oh, yeah, it does a couple other things. Disables your antivirus, and it also exfiltrates your data. So, that is going to get kind of fun. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And we'll get into initial access, how these things happen, and all these other things. But before we get there, you can download the PDF report of this right there. Of course, it's basically the same thing you're looking at right here on this website. The website link will be down below you. That's right. It's down in the description. Check that out. Click the link. Follow along with the bouncing ball. It'll be fun. But if you wanted to download this in PDF, you can do that. You can also download a copy of the IOCs by grabbing the sticks data there. And feeding that into your taxi stuff. Okay, technical details. This is where it gets fun. This is where we get to learn all the little bits and bobs and moving parts on how does this piece of crap malware work when it does the thing that it does. It's funny, I kind of get this way about this a lot when it comes to malware, ransomware, anything like that. I have an admiration for the ingenuity that goes behind creating these things and the things they can do. It's like, wow, really brilliant minds that come up with the code and how it works. And a lot of times they're just, duct taping and baling wire things together in a way that makes it really effective. So I can't help but admire that. But on the other hand, it's like, no, dirtball, stop. If you could only use your powers for good instead of evil. I continue to preach. Anyway, moving back on. Technical details. This is all mapped to the MITRE attack framework for you good folks to reference the tactics and techniques that are being used. There are links throughout this document that will redirect you out to those pertinent pieces of information. So definitely look at those if you're not familiar with them. But let's see here. Moving on. Let's get into this detail. Let's talk about initial access. I want to get into how you get infected with this stuff. I forgot about one thing. Royal actors also engage in what's known as double extortion. These tactics are in which they threaten to publicly release the encrypted data if the victim does not pay the ransom. This is why the exfiltration of data was so important. So shut off your antivirus, start gathering and exfilling data so that they have copies of it. So that if you don't pay, they go, that's cool. It's in Pastebin. Enjoy. Right? What's funny is a lot of times you pay the ransom and they do that anyway. So anyway, let's get back to this. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I felt like I was going to forget and I almost did. All right. So initial access. This is really fun. Oh, I hope I didn't let the cat out of the bag. What do you think is the most effective way for someone to get malware onto a remote host? I'll give you 3 seconds. Time's up. If you said 0 days, wrong. If you said public exploits, wrong. If you said phishing, Ding, 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 ding. What do we have for them, Johnny? Well, today's guests will receive ransomware, the home game, to enjoy in their own sock, right? But yes, that is right. It is phishing. And according to third-party reporting, royal actors most commonly, in 66.7% of incidents, when they mean commonly, gain initial access to victims' networks via a successful phishing email. And then there's the link to a MITRE attack. All right, it says, according to open source reporting, victims have unknowingly installed malware that delivers royal ransomware after receiving phishing emails containing PDF documents, malicious PDF documents, and malvertising. So, buy an iPad for, a brand new iPad for $150, right? It seems legit, like, oh man, that's a really good price. Yeah, just click the link, fill out, use the promo code, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's just ways to get malware on your system. So you got to be really careful, right? You got to be really, really, really careful when it comes to emails. What's in them? I just don't click links in emails, even if I know who it came from. I just don't do it. Yeah, I'm probably going to triple confirm before, if I absolutely have to, especially if there's an attachment involved. I'm super skeptical. And this is why. All right. Hit number 2, how they get initial access is remote desktop protocol, RDP, our favorite. Make it easy for me protocol, software, service, whatever. Is the second most common vector in 13.3% of incidents. What does that bring us up to? 13.3. I'm not good at math. And then 66.7. That gives us 70, 79, 80. So this is 80% of instances, I believe, if I did the math right, which is highly sus, I think the kids say now. I'm trying never to say that, but if I use it in a funny context, I think it's allowed. So my math is sus. Public-facing applications is number 3. FBI has also observed royal actors gaining initial access through public exploits. Excuse me. If you're wondering what that is, I actually went to the MITRE attack for that one to help us, because that seemed a bit vague. And maybe you're new to this game and you're like, I don't really understand what that means. Exploiting public-facing applications. Basically, if you have something like, a web service that is connected to the internet, so people can browse to it through their browser. And there's probably going to be a weakness there. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully you're doing your due diligence. Hopefully you're doing vulnerability assessments and penetration tests, web application penetration tests, network assessments, a whole 9, right? So that you can discover whether or not you have these vulnerabilities. Now, we see that this is done through databases. It says websites here. It says databases here like SQL, services like SMB and SSH, management protocols like SNMP and Smart Install. If it's touching the internet and it's a service, there very well may be a known exploit. So you got to check these things, right? It says if an application is hosted on a cloud-based infrastructure or is containerized, then exploiting it may lead to compromise of the underlying instance or container. So even if you're in containerization in the cloud, you could still jump out of that and move into other parts. So you pivot out, right? Laterally move and all the other good stuff. Here are some examples of this by different APT groups. APT 28 likes using public exploits against Microsoft Exchange. They've also conducted SQL injection attacks. What do we have here? APT 29 is a fan of Pulse Secure VPN exploits and vulnerabilities. FortiGate VPN exploits. Zimbra. We also have exploited Microsoft Exchange control panels. So super, super fun. We got SQL injection for APT 39. We've got exploits against Zoho Manage Engine Desktop Central, as well as Citrix application delivery controllers and gateway devices. So the hits just keep on coming. That's what we mean when we say exploiting public-facing applications. All right. Now, last but not least, we have brokers, basically people on the dark web that will sell you information like login credentials, access, VPN, access keys, I guess, API keys. And there you go. People have, unfortunately, they reuse things like usernames and passwords And if there's no multi-factor, well then, there you go. You're in. You target the right folks, you target the right organizations, now you have access to it, you install your malware, and you're off to the races. So use those brokers. Don't use those brokers. Stop using them. Okay. So now that we've discussed initial access, let's go ahead and move into C2, command and control. If you wonder, I have my notes over here. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. First thing they like to do when it comes to command and control, hello, turn that off. There we go. That won't disturb us anymore. Notifications, they happen all the time. Command and control, C2. Once royal actors gain access, what do they like to do? They like to use legitimate Windows software and repurpose it to strengthen their foothold. This is basically what we call living off the land. What do I got to install something for when I already have things that are already there? So they like to do that if possible, but that doesn't mean they don't install stuff. Actually, they do. It looks like they like to install open source tools like Chisel or Chisel, right? This is Chisel. I like Chisel better, but hey, whatever. Chisel. There we go. What is Chisel, you say? Great question. Glad you asked. Chisel is a fast TCP UDP tunnel transported over HTTP and secured via SSH. Single executable that includes both client and server. It is written in Golang, which is a very popular language nowadays for writing malicious tools, but also very cool administrative tools, such as Chisel. Chisel is mainly useful for passing through firewalls, though it can be used to provide a secure endpoint into your network. Ha ha ha, how about that? So now you can see why they like Chisel. You can take a look more now. I would recommend playing with Chisel. It's a great tool. Red teamers, pen testers, they use this quite a bit for doing things like port forwarding, port redirection, for pivoting actions and things of that nature. Obviously, tunneling is useful for that as well. So Chisel, if you see Chisel and you didn't install it, that doesn't bode well. Why is this here? What else? One more thing. QakBot C2s are used in Royal Ransomware attacks. They're not sure if they exclusively use QakBot as their C2, but the jury's still out on that. Maybe, maybe not. If you're wondering more about QakBot, well, here from securelist.com, they kind of break down QakBot, give you a better description of this. Some of the names that get used, it's been around since 2007. It's basically a banking Trojan, but it has some great functionality like evading detection, backdoors, keystroke logging, and so on and so forth. So it just makes sense to use something that's very useful, such as QakBot, for your C2 infrastructure if you are a bad guy. All right, back to there. Okay, that's basically C2 wrapped up in a ball. Let's get into lateral movement and persistence. Royal actors often used RDP to move laterally across the network. There's that RDP, right? Because it's useful. So if you get the Royal Ransomware, you might want to start really locking down RDP. You might just want to do that anyway, right? They also use things like PSExec, another tool that's commonly found in a domain admin's admin kit, right? But if you don't have the sysinternals, PSExec, and the others installed, and all of a sudden you find it being used on your network, that's not a good thing, okay? So just be aware of that. And that aids them in their lateral movement. They also tend to use a remote monitoring and management system, or RMM software, such as AnyDesk, LogMeIn, and Atera for persistence in the victim's network. And then they talk about somebody gaining access to a domain controller and then modifying group policy objects to deactivate antivirus protocols. Man, it's like they know what they're doing. Like, again, on one hand, you want to kind of like, wow, these smart folks, just smack my ring on the table. But they're really smart folks. I really wish they would stop doing this ransomware crap, because it's a really sucky thing to do. Anyway, all right. So there we go. That is lateral movement and persistence. Funsies. Anything else I wanted to do about that? No, I think we're good. Moving on to exfiltration, how they get the data out of your network. What is the method by which they use this? Well, look at this. I don't know if you can see that. It says, I love it when it does that. Where'd it go? Did I go there? Yeah, it just went way down. Just tried to make it bigger. Goodness gracious. Cobalt Strike. The hacker's tool of choice. Whether it be on the blue team or red team, or whether you're a malicious actor or not, Cobalt Strike is the choice for you. It's actually a phenomenal tool. I'm not surprised that they want to use it. It's a little pricey, though, for normal folks to get their hands on. But if you work in an enterprise environment as a pen tester or red teamer, you're probably using Cobalt Strike. Some free versions of stuff out there. Not free versions, but open source C2s. Cobalt Strike is just one of the best on the market. Brute Ratel is also pretty popular. I'm actually thinking about doing an episode on open source and other C2 frameworks that you might find useful. So keep an eye out for that stuff. Let's see here. Malware tools and derivatives such as Ursnif, Gozi. You're like, what's Ursnif, Gozi? Great question. Again, glad you asked. It is a Trojan. And here are the different names that it might go by. A summary of this horrible, horrible thing, and some technical details. I want to make sure that all that information is available to you. But basically, does all sorts of bad stuff, right? Creates a copy of itself. Here's where some of these files are added, some registry changes that it's going to make. So these are the registry areas you need to be on the lookout for. Network activity. So if you see some connections on your network to this garbage website or this garbage domain, yeah, that's a bad thing. Other behavior, this is where it gets interesting and probably why it's being used. I think it does things like stealing data, which is collected by parsing different email files or email data, intercepts data and web forms in the following browsers, checks for the presence of virtual machines. So VBox, VirtualBox, QEMU, VMware, Virtual HD, detects fishwall software. There's an analysis file. So lots of good technical details here for you about the Ursnif or Gozi Trojan software. Horrible, horrible piece of junk. Okay. Mentions that. Anything else? Oh, it does. Yes, this is important. Real actors' first hop in exfiltration and other operations is usually a US IP address. And that IP address is right here, 94.232.41.105. Don't go there. Don't go there. Who knows what else that does, right? It's obviously being used. I don't know why it's being used, but do your research first. Let's do that. Safe environments before you go anywhere near that. All right, so there we go. That's exfiltration. We're now on to encryption. So this is really cool. The target will check the files that it wants to encrypt. It checks it for them being in use, because you know how it is. You try to do something to a file that's in use. It's like, hey, the file's already in use. You just hang out and wait, I guess, until it becomes available for you. Or is there anything blocking the malware from accessing it? Who knows? So it wants to do some checks for that just to make sure it's not going to have any problems before it encrypts the file. From there, it also deletes the volume shadow copy by using the vssadmin.exe tool, right? To go, oh yeah, you probably got a volume shadow copy of this. Let me go ahead and delete those. I'd hate for you to get around my horribleness by something as simple as volume shadow copy. So we'll just delete those right now. So say goodbye to those volume shadow copy backups. They're out of here. Then it creates a bunch of batch files. And it does have some malicious file locations. So there it is, talking about volume shadow copy. Here's the batch files. And these batch files are important because they are used to do things like create a new user. Let's see here. They force a group policy update. They set persistent registry keys to auto-extract and execute the ransomware. Monitor the encryption process. Delete files upon completion, including application system and security event logs. The old covering tracks phase. Ah, yes, our favorite phase of what did I leave here? What did I get all my stuff? It's like when you're leaving a hotel. You ever do that? You're like, what am I forgetting? Are you going on vacation, right? Yeah, you're getting in the car. You're ready to head to the airport. What am I forgetting? I know I'm forgetting something. And of course, it's not until you hit, the ski lodge that you go, I forgot my skis or whatever, right? So yeah, that's what they're doing here. Delete the logs, remove your tracks, so that you can't get attribution. Let's see here. Here's where they like to store their malicious files. Some oldies but goodies. See temp, see users, see program data. We got some indicators of compromise, right? How do I know whether or not this has happened to me? Well, see Table 1 and 2 for Royal Ransomware IOCs that the FBI obtained during the threat response activities as of January 2023. Some of the observed IP addresses are several months old. So the FBI and CISA recommend vetting or investigating these IP addresses prior to taking forward-looking action, such as blocking. So here's your IOCs and their hashes and IP addresses and domains. We've got like some file extension. If you see files with the .royal extension, you know you're royally hosed because that is the encrypted file extension. And the readme.txt is a ransom note. Let's see here. IPs, which there are scrolling. Finally, malicious domains, scrolling. Not as many, right? So not as many there. And then these are probably some of the best IOC parts where you got the tool plus the SHA-256 hash. You've got AV tamper. You've got the TCP UDP tunneling over HTTP with Chisel. What was it? Looks like Ursnif and Gozi. We've got the Exfil. We've got the remote access of AnyDesk. PowerShell Toolkit Downloader, which is right here. Got this a little too big, I guess. There we go. And then, did I go too far? Yeah, there we go. Oh, here are the batch files. So you got .bat, 2.bat, 3.bat, 4.bat, KL.bat. You've got GP.bat. I'm assuming that's group policy. We've got R.bat. I'm assuming that's run. We got run and delete.bat. I'm just assuming that's to run and delete. But there you go. Here's the MITRE attack mapping. So check those out. And then there should be one more really important piece, which is, yes, mitigations. So many mitigations here. I'll leave those to you. We're trying to keep this under 30 minutes. But there's some really good ones in here that you should probably already be doing. So hopefully you look at this list and go, check. But you never know. You might be like, oh, yeah, so we should probably implement. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Right? So get some good ideas from here. They're just usually really good for stuff. So like implement a recovery plan. If you do not have a playbook that says this is what we do when an incident occurs, especially if it's a ransomware incident specifically, you need to develop that. Stop this right now. Leave your desk. Go start that now. Welcome back. Now that that's done, you can move on to other things. So what goes on in that recovery plan? You want to make sure that you have multiple copies of sensitive or proprietary data and servers in a physically separate, segmented, and secure location. That doesn't mean, if you go, you ever see the meme? I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's like, the file's got crypto lock. But do we have a backup? Yep. Where's the backup? It's on the server that got crypto locked. So that doesn't do you any good. You want to take copies of those files and you want to move them somewhere else that is safe and secure. Require all accounts with passwords to comply with NIST standards. They say use of at least 8 characters. I'm more like go for more like 64. Longer the password, the better. Use a password manager in a hash format. You don't have to worry about those things, right? There's only few passwords that you would need to have to actually know up here, right? So use a password manager, not LastPass, right? Don't they pissed in their boots. That's not good. Let's see what else we got. Add password salts, avoid reusing passwords, disable password hints, implement failed login attempt account lockouts. And let's see, we require multi-factor. Yep. All good stuff, right? There shouldn't be anything that you're like, what is this multi-factor authentication of which you speak? If that is where you're at, welcome to cybersecurity. I didn't realize you were new. But that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. I'm glad you heard it here. But now you need to go get up on that, okay? Do updates, segment your networks, right? I would love a big flat network, right? Just whatever the light touches is all, Simba. No. Segments networks out. You have to cross through barriers to get into other parts of the network. There should be rules like firewalls, ACLs, all that other stuff going on to stop just rampant network traversal. That should not occur. Let's see here. You got to be taking baselines and be investigating abnormal activity. So that's a good idea. You got to have monitoring implemented to make that happen. Lots of stuff. Disable unused ports. What else? Implement access-based accounts or time-based access for accounts set at the admin level. That's a great idea right there. That's a really great idea. Disable command line and scripting activities. That'll stop a lot of that living off the land stuff. I know that can be a double-edged sword, and you have to weigh your pros and cons on whether or not you want to do that, but it is something that you might want to take into account. Maintain offline backups and ensure all backup data is encrypted and immutable. Great stuff. We have reached the finality of the Royal Ransomware Weekly CTI. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned a little bit about it. If you are it just jumped up into my throat right there. Stinking frog. I was going to say, if you are a Royal Ransomware threat actor, please stop. Please use your powers for good and just end all that garbage. Earn an honest living. It's within the human spirit that when we toil the ground and we do something for good and excellent reasons, there's a satisfaction that comes along with it. Okay, I understand. So, that said, hopefully you've learned a little something. Maybe you're better off for the siege when it comes to ransomware and our read through this. Hopefully you are. And you can look at those MITRE attack TTPs. You can check out things like Chisel and start working with it, maybe utilizing it. Make sure you're doing your vulnerability assessments. We learned a lot from what's going on in modern ransomware with this deep dive into the Royal Ransomware system. All right, everyone, I do appreciate you watching. Thanks for joining me and hope to see you next time. Until then, stay safe.